In the meantime, we have allegations that the Secret Service went out and actually tried to find the gun that Hunter Biden's girlfriend, or who is his brother's widow, okay? So just do the math on that. He was sleeping with the woman who was married to his brother who died from cancer, and that woman got mad at him and threw his gun out in a dumpster, which was near a school, and so on, and they couldn't find the gun and all of this. And so apparently there was a cover-up. My friend Steven Stambalia, who is an attorney that works on behalf of Gun Owners of America and also on behalf of just your own individual freedoms. He's a great guy. He was in our episode known as the Machine Gun Lawyer. Steven has sued the ATF, has sued the FBI, and has sued the Secret Service trying to get the records of the investigation to recover Hunter Biden's gun, and was able to do so. In the meantime, you have these two agents, and these are by far not the only ones. Of course, the media response to what's going on here is very specific, and it's very partisan. As you've seen from the Federalist and from Vivek Ramaswamy, we're hearing one side of the story. This is a smokescreen. This is a problem. I want to show you a quick response from Glenn Greenwald, formerly of The Intercept, independent journalist. He has a tweet up here showing a retweet from CNN. And we'll play that video from CNN because I want you to hear it as well. But he said, who would have ever guessed that CNN would immediately bring in a former federal prosecutor who worked for Pret Bharara to defend Hunter Biden and the Biden DOJ. It's so out of character for them relying on United States security state or U.S. security state officials to defend the Biden administration. And his point in this case is that who would imagine that you would find this Biden administration being covered for by CNN of all places? Of course they would. So here's the CNN video. This is about 1 minute and 25 seconds. I do want you guys to see it. This is a woman telling you that nobody would ever deal with real consequences for what she's talking about. And I'll tell you that that's sort of true. But let's play the video real quick. Let's pull this up. So this is from CNN yesterday.
Obviously, you're already hearing a lot of shouting, oh, sweetheart deal, oh, this, oh, that. None of us really knows the details of the possible charges here and exactly what was agreed to as part of this plea, Jennifer. But how does one assess whether this is the type of deal that a normal person, not a president's child, would get in this circumstance?
So you would look to other similar cases, right? So on the gun form charge, it's very, very standard for someone in this situation who lies on the form because they're an addict. The gun is long gone, apparently only had it for a couple of weeks. It's very standard in these circumstances for this diversion to occur and to wipe out the charges, assuming he successfully completes it. So that's totally standard. Mm-hmm. And the tax fraud is similar as well. I mean, he paid those taxes back a long time ago. That's something that DOJ takes very, very seriously when negotiating these deals. And I'll also say that Hunter Biden was an addict at the time. And so there was discussion of this back when this investigation got going. When you're talking about a drug addict, you have to think about whether you can prove the mens rea. If this goes to trial, is he going to be able to undercut their case about whether he knowingly and willfully didn't pay his taxes? So given all of that and given similar cases with tax fraud, this is not a sweetheart deal. It's a deal. I think it's a good deal for Hunter Biden in that he will stay out of prison and end up with only 2 misdemeanors on his record. But it's certainly not a sweetheart deal out of line with what happens in the rest of the country.
Okay, so it's a deal and it's good for Hunter Biden, but it's not a sweetheart deal. Did you hear what she just said? It's good for Hunter Biden, but it's not a sweetheart deal. That's what a sweetheart deal is. Of course, it's a sweetheart deal. Of course, it's a deal that doesn't even allow for him to have for him to have a felony on his record. He's going to plead guilty to misdemeanors. So I want us to just think Calvin ball here. Let's just think about people who have had tax evasion problems and have done jail time for it. How about Wesley Snipes? How about Martha Stewart, who also had to pay back taxes but was, convicted of insider trading and did prison time for it? How about my friend Dinesh D'Souza, who gave basically a verbal agreement that he would reimburse somebody if they wanted to put $10,000 into a Senate campaign, and they went after him for 2 $10,000 reimbursements of donations, saying that he was basically trying to skirt campaign finance laws. And he did something like 6 or 8 months with 5 years of federal probation. He did 6 or 8 months in a community facility where he had to go check himself in during the week, which was essentially a jail experience for him. That kind of stuff is sort of the opposite of what we just heard. And yet it's not a sweetheart deal, right? So this is Calvin Ball. This is what happens when you make up the rules as you go along. I'm going to show you another thing from CNN Politics right here. This is them saying that Hunter Biden to plead guilty on federal tax charges, striking a deal on the gun charges, blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of videos on this. What we were going to see is essentially they're claiming that he owed at least $100,000 in federal taxes for 2017 and then again in 2018, but he didn't pay them on the deadlines. And so the judge will have the final say whether or not they accept the deal. The plea deals have been, going to reverberate through the 2024 presidential, and they've already jump-started criticisms of the Republicans, of course, right? Because they are basically trying to tell you that we've got this one system of judicial punishment, this one system of people facing justice, and everybody has to account. And that's why Hunter Biden, on one hand, he is getting, he's going to be serving no time, and he had to pay back the money he owed, and his gun charge is going to be dealt with, probably going through a drug rehab program, something like that. He's in a pretrial diversionary phase, so he doesn't even have to have the felony. And that's why President Trump has to face charges on 31 counts of classified and or defense materials that were at his house and 6 additional counts of potential conspiracy to hide those crimes. So that's what they're trying to line up. They're saying Hunter Biden, he's going to account for his sins. Now Trump has to do the same, except these are not the same types of deals. You haven't seen a SWAT team go and take Hunter Biden down and arraign him. We didn't see him go out. Why is that? Because he was working alongside with the DOJ, that he went in and participated in the interviews he had to when Daddy is in charge of the deep state there that is actually going after him. I don't know. Is it like the new whistleblower allegations, and I won't even call them that. That's not accurate. Let's call them the cover your ass allegations that Steve D'Antuono, the former assistant director of the FBI's Washington field office, is coming out with under sworn testimony to the oversight committees. What did he say? He says, we probably should have sought consent. We likely would have got it. We probably should have waited for Trump's lawyers to show up for the search warrant at Mar-a-Lago. We probably would have got consent there. It would have been a reasonable thing to expect that we would have had cooperation instead of doing what we did. And he apparently said, I don't think this is a good idea. And then he was overruled by a DOJ official, right? And he was overruled by his own underlings who were running the national security side of the Washington field office. This should be a very big concern. When the top guy at the office is overruled by those underneath him and the DOJ, we have a serious problem. We are not playing by the same rules. Now, I will tell you, because I want to present this in a fair and the least amount of bias that I can, it's worth looking at this article from The Reload. And this says, Hunter Biden cops to gun charges, gets diversion program. That's what we've just been talking about. This is folks over at thereload.com talking about gun stuff. And what they're interested in is the actual details of the deal. Again, this was released yesterday, halfway through the day. It says the second information charges the defendant with a firearms offense, namely 1 count of possession of a firearm by a person who is an unlawful user or addicted to a controlled substance in violation of 18 U.S.C. 922, as we stated earlier, subsection E3, and 924.22. These are 2 different sections. Those are 2 different felonies that we're talking about under 922 and 924. And the defendant has agreed to pretrial diversion with respect to the firearm. Now, the only thing that's somewhat interesting in this is apparently it will make it so that he is not able to own a firearm for the rest of his life. Apparently he had a Colt Cobra, which is actually a very nice revolver, 38 that he had that was dumped in by his brother's widow and lover, and thrown into a dumpster at a grocery store, which was near a school, and all these other kind of things. It was recovered by a man looking for recyclables. That'd be kind of a score. That's probably like a over $1,000 handgun. So they're making reference here in this article that he lied on this federal form. As I said, the 4473, the question about habitual drug use. So that would be a 1001 violation. So you have now 3 felonies basically lined up. And what they are saying is that he is likely to not own a firearm. Even if he completes this, he'll never be able to legally own a firearm again. That is at least of some consolation to those of us that are in this space that know that if we were to do the same thing, something pretty awful would befall us and we would lose our gun rights. We probably would end up in jail. And that essentially has been the argument on the right, the left making an alternative argument. And so the question then becomes, why is he getting this unfair deal or this fair deal that's beneficial to him? And so let's go to U.S. News and World Report, because one of the things that the Democrats are going to point to is that the United States attorney in the District of Delaware, I believe there are 94 federal districts, and this particular individual was sworn in and appointed by President Donald Trump. He's a Trump holdover. Now, you first have to understand what the United States Attorney's system looks like. They are political appointees, and they serve at the pleasure of the president, and they are confirmed by the Senate. Every president, when the regimes change hands, they basically get a resignation. This is pretty standard practice. The United States Attorney for every given district will submit their resignation to the president, should the president choose to accept that resignation. And David Weiss was no exception in this case, I'm sure. He's out of the District of Delaware. He's the top prosecutor. He gets to make, go, no go. He's the sort of guy that makes the decisions. And then the people on the front lines are, in fact, career employees, and their jobs will span presidencies. Those are known as Assistant United States Attorneys, or AUSAs. So I just want the structure to be clear. And in this case, David Weiss was appointed in 2018 under Trump. And he was the guy who got to stick around in order to appear in a non-partial way. We found out that that the Biden administration was going to keep him on to continue handling this investigation. This was into the laptop and so on and so forth. And so this was their appearance or illusion that there is, in fact, fairness. And I don't know that this is the case. So I kind of dug into it a little bit. We want to know this. What's the story? This guy used to be a private partner. He was working for Duane Morris, LLP, which is a law firm in the area outside of Philadelphia, as I understand it. And so I looked into it. They have their own PAC where they actually can donate as partners and as employees, and they can throw money around to various political causes as they see fit. This is from opensecrets.org. And so for 2022, which is going to be the most recent political cycle that we care about, here's a breakdown of how the PAC from Duane Morris, this is David Weiss's former employer, moved money around. And it's pretty even, actually. It's 54% to Republicans, 45, almost 46% to Democrats, and to the tune of just over $100,000 during that cycle. So that in and of itself shows us that we're not talking about someone that's, overtly partisan. They are giving money basically to some national Republicans. They gave some to some state Democrats. That makes sense where they were at. And so, all of these things seem on the level, but what about this? This is from Truth Social. This is Tom Fenton, who is the president of Judicial Watch. I want to bring this sucker up. I'm going to read a truth that he put out. This came out yesterday, and it came out last night, actually, while I was doing show prep. And Tom Fenton says, the United States attorneys are usually nominated and confirmed only with the approval of quote-unquote home state U.S. senators. The U.S. attorney, David Weiss, who gave Hunter Biden the scandalous plea deal on behalf of the Biden administration, was appointed by Donald Trump on the specific recommendation of the two senators, the Democratic senators from Delaware. Weiss had previously been appointed as an acting or interim U.S. attorney for Obama during the years 2009 to 2011. And he says, the more you know, in sort of a snarky way, which is sort of the way that you deal with things on social media. But I think Tom Fenton's point is very well received. This is a guy who at least was considered neutral or not unfavorable by the Obama administration. We keep seeing people that are holdovers from the Obama administration that are now playing ball in this current Biden administration. There are a lot of the same names, a lot of the same faces. So many people are calling this Obama's third term, and I don't think they're wrong. I don't think they bargained on a President Trump interrupting them at all. I think they expected it was going to be Hillary Clinton doing this for another 8 years. So they would have had that. And then who knew? They had to run Joe Biden because they couldn't get Hillary into office. So we are dealing with a guy who at least has the potential of being somewhat more ideologically aligned with the Democrat Party. I did want to bring this up since I talked about it. This is Dinesh D'Souza's press release from the FBI.gov stating their proud sort of experience in getting him sentenced to 5 years of federal probation. 8 months in the first year of that had to be at a community confinement center. My understanding of it is that he was actually teaching and educating people while he was there. I'm sure it was a formative experience for Dinesh. And when we spoke about firearms, he's very, very cautious because he has this felony conviction that he had to plead guilty to. He can't have a gun. He can't know where a gun is. And so if there's a firearm in his house owned by his wife, who's a legal owner, and she and I have talked about guns, then he has to be extremely cautious that he doesn't know where it is because you are actually in sort of this strange place.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter and Truth Social @Kyle Seraphin.